Next story I wanted to talk about is about Rachel Hamm. I wanted to mention her because George Takei actually tweeted about her recently. If you're unfamiliar, George Takei, I think he played Sulu on Star Trek, the original series Star Trek. Incredibly famous, really, really big deal. And he's also an atheist, for the record. He tweeted about Rachel Hamm. He tweeted this article, as a matter of fact. The article's title is GOP Candidate Claims She Knows Trump Won California Because of Her Empath Powers in Bunker's Interview. For the record, this is true, what this article wrote here, but it's from a website that I don't recognize, comicsands.com. I don't know what that is. So I wanted to go to a slightly more reputable website rather than this one. Raw Story wrote about it too. The title of the Raw Story one is California Secretary of State Candidate Claims to Have Empath Powers Proving Trump Won. I just want to point something out real quick. Take a look at the picture that you see in here. This woman is legitimately bonkers, I guess you could say. So I feel like that's a fair summary of her beliefs and personality and things. But you see how they picked this picture of her with her eyes wide open like this? This picture intentionally made her look crazy. This is called propaganda. I'm calling propaganda out when I cover these pastors and these wingnuts and stuff. I call it out then, and I'm calling it out now. This woman has deep, deep issues, but this is propaganda, and this is how propaganda works. If you notice, I never, ever take screenshots or pictures of people like this for my thumbnails. Never. I feel like it unfairly represents the person, and it's just not right, in my opinion, but that's beside the point. I just wanted to give this article a read a little bit. Like I said, it's essentially the exact same thing that's on the Raw Story article, so I'm going to read the George Takei article just because that's what this all came from. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to some of the other stuff Rachel Hamm has talked about. And we're going to talk about some of the newer stuff she said, even more recently. So let's just kind of skim through this article. It's written by John Sundholm, July 29th, 2021. And again, it was written on comicsands.com. Given its enormous population of city dwellers and people of color, it's nearly impossible for a Republican presidential candidate to win the state of California. Indeed, a Republican has not even come close to doing so since 1988. Be that as it may, GOP political candidate Rachel Hamm claims to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that former Republican President Donald Trump won California in 2020, and she knows this because she's an empath who feels vibes, you see. 100% true. Absolutely true what they're saying here, and I'll show you a clip to prove it. Unfortunately, the clip that they're talking about here has been removed. I think it was a Steve Bannon interview that she did, but there are others. I couldn't find the specific one, but there are others, and we'll get to them in a second. Let's keep reading. Hamm, who is running for Secretary of State in California, made her claims while talking to far-right Voldemort Steve Bannon on his show Real America's Voice. Watch the Bunkers video below. Yeah, here's another thing, Voldemort. This isn't a news. You could say this isn't a news article. This is not a journalistic article. It's a commentary article, and that's okay. I do commentary too. But it's easy to confuse the two, so I just want to point that out so you guys are aware. They used a propagandistic image in their thumbnail, and they're using language that is not unbiased, as a news source should be, which makes them not a news source. They're just a commentary source. So anyway, let's talk about Rachel Hamm now. Now that we've talked about some of the article that George Takei posted. This came out mid-March 2022. She was on the Dr. quote unquote, Dr. Mary Crewley show. Give this a listen. See what she had to say.
Satan also has a plan for your life. And that's something that I think is sometimes eye-opening to people. Like, they don't realize how much there's a battle over your life and over your destiny, and how we have to war to sometimes get ourselves into that promised land.
You know, there shouldn't be a battle between God and Satan. God should just win. He's all powerful, right? Why do they frame this up like there's going to be this massive war, or that there's a war unfolding right now between the two? It's just weird. Can't God snap his fingers and be done with Satan? Should we be worried about the War of Armageddon? Should we be making friends with Satan right now? I'm getting a little concerned.
And for me, the war started really young. When I was in preschool, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I was normally home with her, but then she had to have surgery on her neck, and it was going to be quite the recovery process and going to be just a long journey. So my grandmother offered to put me in preschool since it would be hard for my mom to recover and also take care of me. So she took her up on that, and the preschool was a coven that was run by witches. And really, it was, the cover was that it was a preschool, but in reality it was a coven where they were training children.
Okay, I don't believe you. That's completely unrealistic and unbelievable to anybody except the most gullible sucker evangelicals alive. If you can give me some evidence of that, I would review it, but I seriously, truly do not believe a word out of her mouth right now. For the sake of completion, I was told last time I talked about Rachel Hamm that the story that she's telling here is actually almost word for word a copy from somebody else's story, some book. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't Michelle Remembers. That was a totally separate thing. But there's some story that somebody told that like made national news during the Satanic Panic, I think. And it's like almost word for word copied from that person, which makes me believe it even less, honestly. If somebody remembers what I'm talking about, just put it in the comments. I would appreciate it. I'll pin it to the top if I find it.
In satanic rituals and in all things satanic, and how to be a Satanist, literally.
Okay, there are different types of Satanists. There's the Satanic Temple, there's the Church of Satan. There are also other types of Satanists, but the two that I just mentioned are non-theistic. They don't cast spells, they don't believe in witchcraft, all this other stuff. It's all nonsense to them. They have basic tenets which involve rough moral virtues. They have moral beliefs and things and ways to live their life, and that's about it, man. They don't do blood sacrifices. They don't try to appease Satan by praying to him or any of that other nonsense. This is a complete misrepresentation and misunderstanding of what Satanism is, and it shows that she has no idea what she's talking about.
It was day one. It was immediate. And I then, just begged to not go back. But I didn't say what was happening there, though, because they made you feel like you were complicit. So you would never tell because you think you're equally guilty.
It's honestly completely disgusting how she's framing this up. It's truly evil, the way she's framing this. She's framing it in a way that she can drag in the most gullible suckers, and that is really, really sad. It's really sad that people fall for this, that they believe it. So you remember earlier I was talking about that article that was referencing this clip of her saying that she knows Trump won because she is an empath, and she divined that the voters in California voted for Trump. So Trump won California because she's an empath and she knows that. Well, this is similar to that. Like I said, I couldn't find that specific video since Steve Bannon took it down, but I found something similar on another show called the MC Files, hosted by Christopher McDonald. She was on his show, so let's give this one a look. Late March 2022.
I had talked about having the dream about the red wave and how every single state was turning. It was kind of like what is that show? Wheel of Fortune, where they tap the thing that turns. It was like that. It was like a map, and it was like ding, 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 like all the states turning until the whole map was red. And I knew that that was the truth.
You knew that that was the truth. Interesting. How did you know that that was the truth? How did you know it was the truth and not just a dream? How did you determine that God told you this and it wasn't just some fever dream that you had? I would say it would have to be true, first and foremost. It being true doesn't prove that it came from God, but if God told you something, then it would necessarily have to be true. The fact that it didn't come true tells me that God didn't tell you that at all.
That every single state was red, specifically with the 2020 election.
I believe that
every single state went red. And I know people are going to mock me. I don't care. I feel fairly certain that that is what happened.
I'm with you.
And that it's only fraud that made it look otherwise.
She believes that California went red. California voted for Donald Trump. This is a level of delusion that we absolutely can't even touch. I mean, this isn't a new thing either. Like I said, this clip was from March 2022, right? Yeah, late March 2022. She's been saying this for a while, man. I mean, this article that George Takei tweeted out was written back in July of 2021. And that first interview I covered mid-March 2022, this one with the MC Files was late March 2022. But all the way back in October 2021, late October 2021, she went on this famous QAnon interpreter, I guess, QAnon interpreters live stream named Delora O'Brien to talk about similar things. QAnon isn't a traditional religion like you would find many other religions are, so it doesn't really have pastors exactly. Christian pastors can buy into the QAnon belief system and integrate it into their sermons, and they often do, like Johnny Enlow or others. But QAnon, if somebody is purely, strictly QAnon, like Delora O'Brien here, you don't call them a QAnon pastor, you call them a QAnon interpreter, because the whole QAnon thing is such a confusing mess. You need somebody to interpret it and tell you what it means. It's like a Da Vinci Code level thing. It's so confusing. It's all over the place. So anyways, Delora O'Brien is a QAnon interpreter, and she had Rachel Hamm on to talk to her. So let's see what they had to say to each other. Late October 2021.
I'm a big dreamer, but I haven't had a lot of visions.
I'm a big dreamer, but I haven't had a lot of visions. She's actually saying this in a religious way. She's saying that, like, she's a seer. Like, God gives her prophecy through dreams, but she doesn't see many visions while she's awake or whatever. She's claiming to be a prophet of God here.
So I'm laying there wide awake, and I see a night sky come over me in my bed, and I see a door like laying over me, and then the door lifts up, and it turns towards me, and it opens. And I was like, it looks like a door just opened in the heavenlies to me, but I didn't know to what or what it really meant. It felt powerful, but I didn't know, you know. So then the next morning, he's on live at the 11th hour.
He being Robin Bullock, by the way. They're talking about Robin Bullock in his show. If you're unfamiliar with Robin Bullock, we'll cover him in a second. People call him Silly Ray Cyrus. Like I said, we'll get there.
So then the next morning, he's on live at the 11th hour show that I watch every Tuesday. And he said, he starts prophesying, and he said, now someone has just had a door open to them in the heavenlies. And I like got the chills, and the hair stands up, and I'm like leaning towards my computer, you know. And he said, and for that person, I'm hearing secretary. And I was contemplating, like, am I supposed to run for office?
Does he know this? Does he know this?
No. So he's special to me too. You know, when God uses someone in your life like that, it's so profound. And so, that was a very,
he's the real deal. Him and his wife. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this whole thing about Robin. I really don't, but they're the real deal.
My brow is so hecking furrowed right now. I swear, when I get older, I'm going to have just permanent lines across my forehead from watching this ridiculous stuff. They believe that Robin Bullock is a full-blown prophet of God that is speaking to them specifically. This is bizarre. For the record, this is called cold reading. I see psychics do this all the time. You say a couple of words. I'm hearing the letter J, and I'm thinking the word cancer. Can anyone connect that for me? And the audience says, my grandfather's name is John, and he has cancer. We just found out. And everybody in the crowd's like, oh my God, he's a prophet. He knew. How did he know? You throw out any letter and any ailment, and somebody in your audience is going to connect the dots. That's how cold reading works. That's such a simple, basic parlor trick. And they're acting like the dude is like a prophet of God because he did some basic parlor trick. It's ridiculous, dude. Now I gotta find the most ridiculous Robin Bullock clip that I have. I have 33 clips of Robin Bullock now. Let's see. Which one is the most ridiculous? Oh, this is a tough decision. Okay, I'll tell you what. This is one that I haven't played before. Robin Bullock famously called Joe Biden a jackal. He calls him a jackal constantly. He's always referring to him as a jackal. I don't understand why, but, you know, he's the jackal expert. He made up a song about it. Listen to this.
Grab a jackal by the leg, shake him like a dog, throw him all across the ground. Grab a jackal by the leg, shake him like a dog, and throw him across the ground.
Yeah, somebody sent me this clip originally because of the hand movements that Robin Bullock was making. I wasn't really thinking about that so much as the fact that he calls Joe Biden a jackal all the time. That's neither here nor there. Let me find another one, a really good one. So hard to choose. There are so many good ones. Okay, here's a good one. This one is Robin Bullock explaining to us how Noah moved these giant timbers around when he built the ark. Listen to this one.
And you have to ask yourself this: how did he move those timbers around?
Yeah.
How did he pick up those timbers and move them around? Well, there's something called, everything has a frequency.
Yeah.
This AirPod case has a frequency.
Well, I mean, yes, it does have a frequency because it's an electronic device that works wirelessly. But he's not just saying wirelessly connecting items have frequencies. Not talking about that. He's talking about wood, metal, everything, every item. Even we have a frequency. Frequency, quote unquote, according to Robin Bullock. Keep listening.
This AirPod case has a frequency. If you could, because it's made of matter, if you could match the frequency of this AirPod case and you knew what it was and you could match it, you could pick it up off the ground without touching it, just through sound.
Dude, what are you talking about? You can move objects just through sound with your hand. If you could match the frequency of timber, you could pick up gigantic pieces of timber. You could pick up buildings with your hands by matching their frequencies.
It had to be moved with sound. Well, that's brilliance of mind that we don't possess right now. We see, all the technology just actually showed how dumb man has become in comparison to how smart Noah and Adam and all of them were.
Wow, man. Yeah, so that's Robin Bullock. I was trying to find the best clip that represents him as a person, but I don't know. Like I said, I have 33 clips of the guy, and each one is crazier than the last. I couldn't pick one. I couldn't just pick one. So anyway, point is, Rachel Hamm and Delora O'Brien apparently really, really deeply believe every word that Robin Bullock has to say, and they think that he's like this amazing prophet that has insight from God in mysterious ways. Just bizarre, dude. Check out the next clip. Same interview, Delora O'Brien and Rachel Hamm, late October 2021. Listen to this.
Do you remember when Obama was president, and for those 8 years we were having a hard time saying Merry Christmas?
No, I don't remember that. I don't think anybody remembers that because it's a fantasy. That never happened. There was never this war on Christmas that they wanted there to be. They fabricated this war so that they could feel persecuted. Nobody was ever telling anyone not to say Merry Christmas. Some people chose to say Happy Holidays because they recognized there were Jewish people in this country and atheist people in this country and all kinds of different types of people. I mean, there are Jehovah's Witnesses too. Your brand of evangelicalism isn't the only thing that exists. There are a lot of people out there. But no, somebody says Happy Holidays and it's an attack on them specifically. No, Delora, I don't remember that. Nobody remembers that. I remember you losing your mind over the fact that some people chose to say Happy Holidays of their own free will. I remember that.
Do you remember when Obama was president, and for those 8 years we were having a hard time saying Merry Christmas?
Yeah.
How things have changed.
Yeah.
So much, and that's a lot due to President Trump.
Yes.
Obviously,
yes, and I think even his absence is important too, because the Lord is working powerfully in the absence.
They are so disconnected from reality, dude. So disconnected from reality. You know the scariest part about all this? I've been going through some of her stuff for a while. Let's see. So far, we've spent around 20 minutes talking about Rachel Hamm, right? Well, here's where it gets real. I'm going to lay this out for you. Early April 2022, brand new clip just came out. This is between Craig DeLuz and Rachel Hamm, I believe his name is. Listen to what she has to say here. By the way, just a quick reminder, she's running for Secretary of State for the state of California.
My views are a little bit controversial when it comes to voter registration. Everyone is wanting to make it as easy as possible and kind of appeal to the lowest common denominator of the easiest way to get as many people registered as possible.
Yeah, I want to get as many people registered as possible to vote. Absolutely. You know what's required to register to vote in the first place? You need all the same stuff that you need to get your license. You need your license at the very least, or birth certificate, social security card. You know what? Let's just look it up. I guess it depends on the state that you're in, but let's look up just New York because that's a state that I'm in. To register online, apparently you can register to vote online. You need your New York State driver's license, permit, or non-driver ID card, a zip code currently on record with the DMV, and you need a social security number. Those are the things that you need. We're not saying we want anybody to just come in and be able to register. Like, absolutely anybody, whoever wants to, just sign this form and it's all you. That's not what we want. That's not what we have. You're still required to turn over all kinds of documentation to register to vote.
I see it the exact opposite. I want to make it hard. I want it to be something that people have to choose and re-choose and have to prove that they're a citizen and all.
I mean, you already have to do that. You already have to choose to register to vote. And then you put your signature down and they do the whole signature matching thing and everything else. This is all stuff that already exists. We just want to get as many people registered as humanly possible. That's what we want. You are trying to restrict people's ability to vote at all because lower turnout means Republicans are more likely to win. That's how it works. Statistically, Republicans are more likely to win because older people tend to lean more Republican and they'd crawl over broken glass to vote for their guy. That is why lower turnout equals Republican wins. And that's why, really, Republicans try to restrict voting rights.
I would love, and again, I know this is controversial. Some people like it, some people hate it, but I think we should clean the slate.
No, who she's talking to here, some people like it, some people hate it. No, the people that she's talking to right now, she knows that they would love it. She's pandering to her audience right now.
I think we should clean the slate completely and have people have to re-register, say, every 8 years or maybe even every 12 years.
That's kind of already the law, isn't it? When are you kicked off of voter rolls? Yeah, they're called voter purges. I'm having trouble finding the information specifically, but states are constantly kicking people off the voter rolls. This is not some unique, amazing idea that she's presenting to us.
But you have to re-register. You have to stay, proving that you still want to vote, that you're still alive, and that you still want to vote, that you still live in the place where you're saying you live. And so that's what I would like to do with voter registration. There is a law, the National Voter Registration Act of 1984, that is really problematic, really makes it difficult to get people off the voter rolls once they're on.
That's because voting should be a right. You should have a right to vote. It shouldn't be like, politicians can remove you anytime they want. That is how they fix things. That's how they rig things to give an edge to themselves. They kick people off voter rolls. They lower it to a single day to vote. Why do that? They eliminate absentee ballots. Why? We have incredible technology today. Types of technologies that can detect fraud before it happens practically. I mean, we have artificial intelligence that can detect all kinds of crazy stuff. There is no need to kick people off of voter rolls when we can just compare the voter rolls to death certificates and find out who voted and who has a death certificate on file. Like, there are so many other solutions to this other than making people's lives miserable, other than making it nearly impossible to vote. This is a cheap trick by corrupt politicians to try to give themselves an edge. Same as gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is notoriously a corrupt tactic to give yourself an edge over the other politicians. It's anti-democratic. Same as kicking people off the voter rolls. It's anti-democratic. If you don't want a democracy in the United States, then just say that. You don't have to pretend. Republican politicians have famously, in certain areas, gone through data and found the type of ID that is least likely to be held by African American voters. and most likely to be held by white voters. And they made that ID the one that's required to vote in their district. They've done things like that. They use the system to give themselves an advantage. It's anti-democratic, it's corrupt, it's evil, and that's exactly what we've come to expect from Republicans. That's where the whole voter ID thing came from in the first place, was that case. I think it was in North Carolina, I forget now. But I think the Supreme Court shot that specific thing down, or one of the courts shot that specific case down, but then ID voting, it came up as an issue in general, and it's been a hotly debated topic for like ever. It originated as a racist policy to give themselves a better edge on the election. So that's Rachel Hamm. She's running for Secretary of State in California. Not likely to win, but she has a real platform. She has a platform and people are listening to her. We've got to pay attention to what's happening with her right now.